Ivan Kravitz had driven the Siberian ice road 200 times without incident. When a whiteout separated him from his convoy and his rig slid into a frozen ravine, his heater died and his radio went silent except for phantom static. His beacon was buried outside beneath 6 feet of snow. 400 miles of tundra stood between him and rescue. The temperature was plummeting to 40 below. His food would last 3 days. This is one of the most extraordinary survival stories ever to emerge from Siberia. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The Kamaz depot in Yakutsk smelled like diesel fuel and welding smoke at 4 in the morning. Ivan performed his pre-trip inspection in the darkness, running gloved hands along tire treads, checking air pressure gauges, testing brake lines. 42 degrees below zero. Cold enough that exposed skin froze in minutes, but nothing unusual for February in Sakha Republic. 7 other trucks idled in formation behind him. Dmitry Volkov, the convoy leader, walked down the line with his clipboard, vapor trailing from his breath like a steam engine. He stopped at Ivan's rig and knocked twice on the doorframe. Weather system moving in from the north, Dmitry said. Should pass south of our route, but keep your intervals tight today. No wandering off. Ivan nodded. 12 years driving this road, and Dmitry still treated him like a rookie. The M56 highway, locals called it the Road of Bones because prisoners had built it, died building it, and got buried beneath it. 2,000 miles of permafrost, river crossings, and settlements scattered so far apart they might as well be different planets. Radio check, Dmitry's voice crackled through the CB. Unit 1, check. Unit 1, good, came the response. Unit 2, check. Unit 2, good. Down the line until Unit 3, check. Unit 3, good, Ivan said. His voice sounded flat in his own ears. Anya's birthday was in 4 days. He'd promised to be home. Never missed one yet. The convoy rolled out at 0500, headlights cutting through darkness that wouldn't lift for another 3 hours. Ivan settled into third position, not leading, not trailing. The sweet spot where you could follow taillights but still maintain your own judgment. He'd learned that lesson hauling logs across Lake Baikal when the ice was still questionable. The leaders went through. The followers went around. His cargo manifest read, medical supplies, priority, which meant mining camps running low on antibiotics, insulin, emergency equipment. 300 miles to the depot at Kandiga, then another 200 to the final outpost. 2 days if weather held, 3 if it didn't. The temperature gauge on his dashboard read minus 45. Ivan adjusted the heater vent, felt warm air on his face. The Kamaz wasn't pretty, but it was reliable. He'd rebuilt the heating system himself last summer, replaced worn seals, upgraded the insulation. Preparation wasn't glamorous, but it kept you breathing. By noon, they'd covered 200 kilometers. The sky had turned from black to deep gray, but something felt wrong about the light. Too diffuse, too uniform. Ivan checked his mirror. Unit 4's headlights were there, maintaining interval. He checked forward. Unit 2's taillights glowed red through increasing snow. Unit 1 to convoy, Dmitry's voice came through. Visibility dropping. Tighten up to 50 meters. Acknowledge. One by one, drivers confirmed. Ivan eased off the throttle slightly. Let Unit 2's lights grow brighter. 50 meters in clear conditions was nothing. In a whiteout, it was the difference between following and lost. The wind picked up. The windshield wipers struggled against ice buildup. Ivan leaned forward, squinting through the glass as Unit 2's taillights flickered in and out of visibility. The red glow would appear for 3 seconds, vanish for 5, reappear in a slightly different position. Snow hit the windshield horizontally now, driven by wind that rocked the Kamaz on its suspension. His temperature gauge needle dropped. 47 degrees below zero, then 49. Unit 1 to convoy, reducing speed to 40 kilometers per hour. Road conditions deteriorating. Even touched his brakes gently, felt the wheels grab, release, grab again. Black ice underneath the snow. The Road of Bones had killed better drivers than him in conditions like these. He downshifted, let the engine slow him rather than trusting the brakes. Unit 2's taillights disappeared completely. Ivan counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, nothing. Unit 3 to Unit 2. I've lost visual. Confirm your position. Static answered him. Unit 3 to Unit 1. Lost contact with Unit 2. More static. Then Dimitri's voice, broken and distorted. All units, maintain, bearing 27. The radio cut out. Ivan's chest tightened. The reflective posts marking the road edge were supposed to appear every 50 meters. He'd passed one 30 seconds ago, should see another any moment. His headlights showed only white. Not snow on ground, just white. Sky, ground, and everything between merged into a single, colorless void. There, a flash of orange reflector on his right. He corrected slightly, keeping the marker at his 2 o'clock position. Standard navigation. Follow the posts. Trust the posts. His heater fan made a grinding sound, then went silent. No, not now. Warm air stopped flowing from the vents. The temperature inside the cab started dropping immediately. Ivan hit the heater controls, twisted the fan dial. Nothing. He could hear the engine running fine, feel vibration through the seat, but the heating system was dead, minus 50 outside. Without heat, the cab would match exterior temperature in less than an hour. Unit 1, this is Unit 3. Heater failure. Request permission to stop for repair. Static. Unit 1, acknowledge. Nothing but white noise and the howl of wind. Another reflector post appeared, but this one was on his left. Wrong side. He drifted across the road without realizing it. Ivan corrected hard, felt the rear wheels slide, caught the skid before it became a spin. His heart hammered against his ribs. The road curved here. He remembered this section. Gentle bend to the right, then straight away for 3 kilometers. Stay in the curve. Don't overcorrect. He couldn't see the next post. 30 seconds passed. 45. Nothing. He should have seen 3 posts by now. Ivan's hands gripped the wheel. The convoy was gone. The road markers were gone. His heater was dead and his radio transmitted nothing but ghost signals into a storm that had swallowed everything familiar. He was alone. Ivan made the decision that would nearly kill him. He turned right, following what he thought was the road's curve. The Kamaz rolled forward at 30 kilometers per hour, headlights showing nothing but swirling white. His breath formed clouds inside the cab now. Cold seeped through his insulated coveralls. The ground changed, subtle at first, a slight downward angle that pulled the truck forward. Ivan touched the brakes. The wheels locked and slid. He released, pumped again, but the Kamaz kept accelerating down an incline that shouldn't exist on this section of road. Wrong. This was wrong. He yanked the wheel left, trying to angle uphill, back to where level ground should be. The rear wheels broke loose completely. The truck slid sideways, gravity and momentum dragging it down a slope Ivan couldn't see. He counter-steered, felt the front wheels catch something. Snow, ice, frozen earth, then lose it again. The world tilted. 45 degrees, 60. The Kamaz was rolling, sliding, falling through white nothing. Impact. Ivan's head snapped sideways into the doorframe. Stars exploded across his vision. The truck bounced, metal screaming, then hit again harder. The windshield cracked into a spider web. Equipment from the passenger seat flew forward. Thermos, clipboard, his lunch bag, all suspended in air for one impossible moment before gravity reasserted itself. A third impact drove the air from his lungs. Then stillness. The engine had died. Wind howled outside, but the truck wasn't moving anymore. Ivan hung at an angle in his seat, held by the safety belt cutting across his chest. His right shoulder throbbed where it had slammed into the door. Blood dripped from somewhere above his left eye, warm against cold skin. He touched his face with shaking fingers. Not too much blood. Scalp wound, maybe. Those always bled worse than they were. He moved his arms, both worked. Legs, pain in his right knee, but he could flex it. Neck, sore but functional. The cab was nearly sideways, tilted 40 degrees to the right. Through the cracked windshield, he saw only darkness and snow. No lights, no reflectors, no road. Ivan tried the ignition. Click, click, nothing. The starter motor turned over, but the engine wouldn't catch. Coolant smell filled the cab. Antifreeze. The crash had damaged something in the cooling system. He tried his radio. Unit 3 to Unit 1. I've gone off-road. Repeat, off-road. Over. Static answered, then a fragment of sound that might have been a voice, or might have been atmospheric interference. Unit 3 to any unit. Mayday, mayday, I am down. Repeat, I am down. The radio crackled. For 3 seconds, a voice broke through. Opie that, search and... Then nothing. They'd heard him. Maybe. Or he'd imagined it because his skull had bounced off a door frame at 60 kilometers per hour. Ivan unclipped his safety belt and immediately slid right, slamming into the passenger side. Pain shot through his shoulder. He bit down hard, tasting blood from where he'd bitten his tongue. The temperature gauge read -51. Without the engine, without heat, he had maybe 4 hours before hypothermia became irreversible. He needed to think, needed to survive, needed to get out of this metal coffin before it became his grave. Ivan's flashlight beam cut through the darkness inside the cab. His emergency kit sat wedged behind the passenger seat. 50 pounds of gear his father had taught him to pack. Never drive the ice road empty-handed. Tools, flares, matches, a compact sleeping bag rated to -40, dried fish, 2 protein bars. Not much. Enough to matter. He pulled the kit free, fingers already stiffening from cold. The thermos had survived the crash, still half full of lukewarm coffee. His compass hung from the rearview mirror, glass cracked, but needle still pointing north. Outside, wind screamed across metal. Ivan's flashlight beam swept across the tilted cab. His emergency kit sat wedged behind the passenger seat. Canvas bag his father had given him 20 years ago, with instructions written in permanent marker on the side. Check monthly. Repack yearly. Never leave home without it. He pulled it free. 50 pounds felt like 100 in his current state. The bag thudded onto the passenger seat, and he unzipped it with fingers already stiffening from cold. Inventory: compact sleeping bag rated to -40, magnesium fire starter, waterproof matches, wire saw, fixed blade knife, emergency blanket, 3 road flares, small aluminum pot, 50 feet of paracord, 2 protein bars, handful of dried fish wrapped in wax paper. The thermos had rolled under the brake pedal, still intact. He unscrewed the cap. Lukewarm coffee, maybe half full. Not much, but liquid was liquid. His compass hung from the rearview mirror, glass cracked but needle still pointing north. Even unhooked it, checked the bearing. The convoy had been traveling southwest on bearing 220 when he lost them. If they continued en route, they were somewhere in that direction. How far? 10 kilometers? 50? In this storm, distance meant nothing. The driver's side door was jammed against frozen earth. He'd have to exit through the passenger side, which meant climbing upward through the tilted cab. Ivan pulled on his heavy winter coat, rated to -60, and wrapped a wool scarf around his face and neck. His hat, thick gloves, and winter boots completed the ensemble. Good gear, but not designed for extended exposure. Truck drivers weren't supposed to be outside long enough to need survival equipment. He stuffed the sleeping bag and emergency supplies into a cargo net bag, slung it over his good shoulder. The pain in his right shoulder had settled into a deep ache. Not broken, probably. Badly bruised. He'd deal with it. The passenger door resisted when he pushed. Frozen shut. Ivan braced his boots against the center console and shoved with both hands. The door groaned, cracked free from ice and swung open. Wind hit him like a physical blow. -51 felt like -70 with the wind chill. The cold invaded his lungs, made breathing painful. Snow pelted his face despite the scarf. He could barely see 3 feet in any direction. The Kamaz rested at the bottom of a ravine, 40 feet below road level. Ivan could see the gouge in the snow where the truck had slid, a dark scar against white. Getting back up that slope would be impossible without equipment he didn't have. He dropped his bag into the snow and lowered himself after it, landing hard on his injured knee. Pain shot up his leg, but he stayed upright. The truck loomed above him, a dark mass against darker sky. Already it looked foreign, like something from another world. Ivan reached back inside and grabbed his radio, clipped it to his belt. Dead or not, he'd keep trying. The wind howled. Snow accumulated on his shoulders within seconds. He was standing in Siberia, 400 miles from anywhere, in the worst storm he'd seen in 12 years of driving, and he was completely alone. Ivan's first priority was shelter. The truck offered protection from wind, but staying inside meant dying slowly in a metal freezer. He circled the Kamaz, searching for the external tool compartment. His emergency beacon was in there, a PLB that transmitted directly to satellites. Press the button and search and rescue would have his exact coordinates within minutes. He found the compartment on the driver's side, half buried in snow. The door had buckled in the crash, warped metal preventing it from opening. Ivan pulled his knife and tried to pry it. The blade skated off frozen metal. He tried the wire saw, working it into the gap between door and frame. 5 minutes of sawing produced nothing but numb fingers. The wind shrieked across the ravine, driving snow into his eyes despite the scarf. He couldn't feel his cheeks anymore. His fingers screamed pain every time he moved them. This wasn't working. Ivan trudged back to his supply bag and pulled out a road flare. 3 flares total, meant for signaling, not demolition. But the beacon was useless if he couldn't reach it. He struck the flare against its cap. Brilliant red light erupted, shockingly bright against the white void. Heat radiated from the burning magnesium. He held the flare against the compartment door's hinges. Metal hissed and popped. Ice melted and ran down in streams that froze immediately. The hinge started to glow orange. Ivan wedged his knife into the gap and levered. The door bent, screeched, and finally tore free. The emergency beacon sat in its bracket, orange plastic case covered in frost. Ivan grabbed it, thumbed the activation switch. Nothing happened. He tried again. The indicator light should have turned green. It stayed dark. Ivan opened the battery compartment. The plastic housing had cracked in the crash. Moisture had gotten inside, and the batteries were frozen solid. His lifeline to rescue was dead. Ivan stood there holding useless plastic while the flare burned down in his other hand. The wind mocked him with its howling. He wanted to scream, to throw the broken beacon into the snow, to punch the truck that had betrayed him. Instead, he placed the beacon carefully back in the compartment and closed what remained of the door. The flare sputtered out. Darkness returned, absolute except for his flashlight. 2 flares left. No beacon, no working heater, no functioning radio except for occasional bursts of static that might be real or might be wishful thinking. Even checked his watch. 1,500 hours. Sunset would come around 16:30. He had maybe 90 minutes of gray daylight left, though calling this murk daylight was generous. Decision time. Stay with the truck and hope the convoy noticed his absence? Turn back, somehow found him in a ravine 40 feet below road level in zero visibility. Or walk. His father's voice echoed in memory. Truck is shelter. Never leave your vehicle in a storm. His daughter's voice answered, You promised, Papa. You promised you'd be home for my birthday. Ivan pulled out his compass. The needle swung, settled, pointed north. Southwest was bearing 220. That's where the convoy had been going. That's where settlements existed, however distant. He could walk 20 kilometers a day if he pushed. Maybe, in good conditions. These weren't good conditions. Ivan climbed back into the truck one last time. The cargo area held medical supplies bound for mining camps. Antibiotics, bandages, insulin, emergency surgical kits. He tore open a box and grabbed what might matter. Gauze, antibiotic ointment, ibuprofen, surgical tape. Stuffed them into his bag alongside the food and gear. The rear cargo door had buckled, but he forced it open enough to squeeze through. Inside, wooden crates were stamped with Cyrillic letters and handling instructions. He pried one open with his knife. Beneath the medical supplies, packing materials, insulation. Ivan grabbed handfuls of foam padding and shoved them inside his coat for extra insulation. A tarp. There, folded beneath a crate. 10 feet by 12 reinforced canvas. Not ideal for shelter, but better than nothing. He dragged it free and added it to his growing pile of supplies. His bag was getting heavy. 50 pounds had become 70, maybe 80. He'd pay for that weight with every kilometer, but he'd also die without proper gear. Ivan redistributed the load, using paracord to create a makeshift harness that distributed weight across both shoulders despite the injured one screaming protest. Back in the cab, he wrote a note on the back of his manifest paperwork. Ivan Kravitz, Feb 18, traveling Sarajevo on bearing 220, heading toward convoy route. Tell Anya her father tried. He placed it on the dashboard where anyone searching the wreck would find it. The radio crackled. Ivan froze, listening. Static, then. Unit 3, report, position. Dimitri's voice. Broken, distorted, but definitely Dimitri. Ivan grabbed the handset. Unit 1, this is Unit 3. I am down. Repeat, I am down approximately 40 feet off-road in ravine. Heater failed, went off course during whiteout. Emergency beacon non-functional, over. Static answered. Unit 1, do you copy? Over. Nothing. Then barely audible through interference. Copy that. Conditions, search and recovery when. The transmission cut off. They'd heard something. Maybe not all of it, but something. Search and recovery when conditions allowed. That could mean tomorrow, could mean 3 days. The storm showed no signs of stopping. Ivan checked the temperature gauge one last time. Minus 53. Dropping. He couldn't wait 3 days in a dead truck. Ivan stepped out into the storm for the final time. He looked back at the Kamaz, his companion for 12 years. 247 successful runs across the ice road. It had saved his life in the crash. The cab's reinforced frame, the safety belt, the supplies he'd stored inside. Now it was just a tomb waiting to happen. He pulled the scarf tighter around his face, checked his compass bearing, and started walking southwest. The first steps were the hardest. Each one took him farther from the only shelter for hundreds of kilometers. Each one was a commitment to a plan that might kill him, but staying guaranteed death. Walking gave him a chance. Snow crunched under his boots. Wind pushed against him like a living thing trying to force him back. The truck disappeared behind him within 30 seconds, swallowed by white. Ivan counted steps to keep his mind focused. 1, 2, 3, 4. At 1,000 steps, he'd rest, check his bearing, drink some water. At 1,000 steps, he'd still be alive. He kept walking. This story takes time to craft. If you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The tundra was a white hell. No landmarks, no trees, no reference points except the compass needle that Ivan checked every 100 steps. The wind hit from the northwest, quartering across his path, trying to push him off course. He compensated by angling slightly into it, trusting mathematics over instinct. 973, 984, 991, 1,000. Ivan stopped, pulled his scarf down, and immediately regretted it. The cold slammed into his face like broken glass. He yanked the fabric back up and fumbled for his thermos with stiff fingers. The coffee was cold now, but still liquid. He took 3 small sips, felt them burn down his throat, and screwed the cap back on. Half the thermos remained. Ration it, make it last. His watch read 1,600 hours. He'd been walking 30 minutes and covered maybe 1 kilometer. At this pace, 20 kilometers a day was fantasy. 10 would be an achievement. 5 might be reality. The compass showed he'd drifted 5 degrees off course. Ivan corrected, oriented himself southwest again, and started walking. 1, 2, 3. His right knee throbbed with each step. The shoulder was worse. A deep, grinding pain that radiated down his arm. He'd taken 2 ibuprofen before leaving the truck. They weren't helping much. At 2,000 steps, he checked the radio. Static greeted him, then a burst of sound at exactly 47 minutes past the hour. Always 47 past. Why? Some scheduled check-in, atmospheric phenomenon. Ivan didn't know, but the pattern was real. He'd heard it 5 times now. The static came at 47 past every hour like clockwork. He tried transmitting, Unit 3 to any station, walking southwest from crash site. Repeat, walking southwest, over. The static didn't answer. 3,000 steps, 4,000. The light was dying, gray transitioning to darker gray that would become black. Ivan needed shelter before full darkness. Walking blind in a storm was suicide. A darker shape appeared ahead, low, horizontal. Ivan approached carefully, found a ridge where wind had scoured snow down to bare rock and ice. The ridge ran roughly east-west, creating a natural windbreak on its southern side. Not much, but enough. He dropped his pack and pulled out the tarp. His fingers barely functioned, clumsy clubs inside the gloves. Simple tasks became monumental. Unfolding the tarp took 5 minutes. Securing it to the ridge using paracord and rocks took 15 more. The shelter was crude. Tarp stretched at an angle from the ridge down to ground level, creating a triangular space barely large enough to lie down in. Wind still found ways inside, but it blocked the worst of it. Ivan crawled in, dragging his pack behind him. Inside the shelter, he could finally stop moving. His body immediately started shaking, violent tremors that he couldn't control. Hypothermia, early stages. His core temperature had dropped despite the exertion of walking. Ivan pulled out the sleeping bag and wrestled into it, still wearing all his clothes. The bag was rated to -40. Outside was -53 and dropping. The math wasn't in his favor. He pulled the emergency blanket over the sleeping bag, thin mylar that reflected body heat. Every layer helped. The shaking continued. Ivan clenched his jaw to keep his teeth from chattering, pulled his knees to his chest, and waited for his body to generate enough warmth to matter. Darkness fell completely. Wind screamed across the tundra, and Ivan lay in his inadequate shelter, counting heartbeats instead of steps. The shaking wouldn't stop. Ivan's muscles spasmed, burned calories he couldn't afford to waste, but his body demanded heat, and movement was the only way to generate it. He forced himself to do isometric exercises inside the sleeping bag, tensing and releasing muscles, flexing his toes inside his boots, clenching and unclenching his fists. After an hour, the violent tremors subsided to occasional shivers. Not warm, but not dying. Not yet. He pulled out one protein bar and ate half. The chocolate and peanuts tasted like cardboard, but his body needed fuel. He chewed slowly, making each bite count, then wrapped the other half carefully and stored it. 2.5 protein bars left, a handful of dried fish. That was his food supply until he found civilization or died trying. The radio crackled at 1947. Ivan grabbed it, pressed transmit. Unit 3 to any station. First night. Traveled approximately 5 kilometers southwest. Sheltered in ridge formation. Over. Static answered, then fragments. Search operations suspended until visibility improves. They'd stopped looking. Smart call. Searching in this storm would kill the searchers. But it meant Ivan was on his own for at least another day. Probably 2. Copy that, Ivan said to the static. I'll keep moving southwest. Look for me on the convoy route. No response. He didn't expect one. Sleep was impossible. The cold wouldn't allow it. Every time Ivan closed his eyes, his body temperature would drop and the shaking would start again, forcing him awake. He dozed in 15-minute increments, never deeply, always aware of the wind trying to tear his shelter apart. At some point during the night, he hallucinated. Anya stood outside the tarp, 8 years old, wearing her yellow summer dress. Papa, why aren't you home yet? You promised. I know, sweetheart. I'm trying. Mama says you're always trying. She says trying isn't the same as doing. His wife had said that years ago, before the cancer took her, before Ivan had become both father and mother to a girl who needed more than he knew how to give. I'll be there, Ivan said. 4 days. I'll be there in 4 days. But Anya was gone, and Ivan was talking to frozen canvas. He forced himself to eat 3 pieces of dried fish. The salt burned his cracked lips, but his body needed protein and sodium. He melted snow in his mouth for water, inefficient, cost more calories than it provided, but his thermos was nearly empty. The night lasted forever. Ivan tracked time by the radiostatic bursts, 2047, 2147, 2247. Each hour he was still alive felt like a victory. At 0300, the wind shifted. The change in sound woke him from a doze. Wind now came from the north, straight over the ridge, directly into his shelter. The tarp snapped and billowed. Paracords strained against rocks. One anchor point tore free and the entire shelter threatened to collapse. Ivan rolled out of his sleeping bag into wind that hit like a hammer. His flashlight showed the problem. The rock holding the northwest corner had shifted. He grabbed it, wrestled it back into position, retied the cord with fingers that barely responded to commands. By the time he crawled back into the shelter, he was shaking violently again. His core temperature had plummeted in those 3 minutes of exposure. The sleeping bag felt like ice against his skin. Dawn came as a gradual lightening of darkness to gray. Ivan had survived the night, but barely. His body felt wrong, sluggish, disconnected, thoughts coming slower than they should. Mild hypothermia. He recognized the symptoms from survival training 2 decades ago. If it progressed to moderate or severe, he was dead. He forced himself to eat the other half of the protein bar and 3 more pieces of dried fish. His stomach protested, cramped, but he kept the food down. Calories meant heat. Heat meant survival. The storm had weakened overnight. Wind still blew hard, but visibility had improved to maybe 50 meters. Ivan packed his gear with clumsy hands, rolled the tarp, secured everything to his pack. The shelter had saved his life. Leaving it felt like abandoning a friend. His watch read 0630, sunrise, though the sun wouldn't actually appear through the clouds. He checked his compass, confirmed his bearing, and started walking. Southwest. Always southwest. 1, 2, 3, 4. His knee had stiffened overnight. Each step sent pain shooting up his leg. He developed a limp, favoring his left side, which threw off his balance and made walking through snow even harder. By 1,000 steps, he was breathing hard, sweating inside his layers despite the cold. At 2,000 steps, something changed in the landscape. The flat tundra gave way to rolling terrain. Small hills, gentle slopes, shallow depressions. Harder to walk, but psychologically important. Terrain meant variation. Variation meant he was making progress, covering distance, not just walking in circles. Ivan crested a low rise and stopped. Below him, a frozen stream cut through the landscape, maybe 3 meters wide. The ice looked solid, thick and white, but he'd lived in Siberia long enough to know looks meant nothing. Test it. Always test it. He approached the bank carefully, found a fist-sized rock, and threw it onto the ice. Solid thump. No cracking, no dark patches indicating thin ice. Ivan walked along the bank, testing with his boot before committing his full weight. The ice held. Crossing took 3 minutes of careful shuffling. On the far side, he turned to look back. His tracks led down to the stream, across, and up the opposite bank. First physical proof of his journey, he'd walked from somewhere to here. He existed. He was real. The radio crackled. Unit 3, Ivan Kravitz. Presumed location, search grid expanded. Ivan grabbed the handset. Unit 1, this is Unit 3. I am alive and mobile. Walking southwest toward convoy route, day 2. Approximately 10 kilometers from crash site. Over. Static. Then Dimitri's voice, clearer than before. 3. Negative on your position. Repeat. Search pattern focuses on road corridor, if you can. Flare. A flare. Visual signal. Ivan had 2 left, but a flare only worked if someone was close enough to see it. How close were the searchers? 10 kilometers, 50. Firing a flare blind would waste it. Unit 1, I'm conserving flares until I have visual or audio contact with search aircraft. We'll monitor radio for your position reports. Over. The transmission faded. Ivan didn't know if they'd heard him. Didn't matter. He had a plan. Walk toward where the convoy should be. Listen for helicopters. Watch for search planes. When he saw or heard them, fire a flare. Simple. Probably hopeless, but a plan nonetheless. He kept walking. By midday, Ivan knew he was in trouble. Real trouble. Beyond cold and exhaustion and pain. His right boot had developed a crack along the sole near the toe. Small at first, barely noticeable. But walking through snow forced moisture inside with every step. His sock was wet. His toes were losing feeling. Wet feet in -50 meant frostbite. Frostbite meant tissue death. Tissue death meant amputation if he survived. which he probably wouldn't. Ivan stopped, found a relatively sheltered depression between two low hills, and assessed the damage. He pulled off the boot and sock. 3 toes on his right foot had gone white, not the pink white of cold skin, but the dead white of frozen flesh. He touched them, no sensation, no pain, nothing. He'd seen frostbite before, on other drivers who'd gotten careless. The white stage could sometimes be reversed with careful rewarming. Beyond white came gray, then black. Black meant the tissue was dead, gone, never coming back. Ivan pulled out his first aid supplies: gauze, antibiotic ointment, surgical tape. He wrapped the toes carefully, packed extra gauze around them for insulation, then put the sock back on. The boot was another problem. The crack had widened, nearly 2 inches now, split along a stress point. He used surgical tape to bind the crack, wrapped paracord around the entire boot for reinforcement, then fashioned a crude outer layer using part of his emergency blanket. It looked ridiculous. It probably wouldn't hold, but it might keep his foot dry enough to prevent further damage. The repair took 40 minutes. 40 minutes of not moving, not generating heat, body temperature dropping. By the time he finished, he was shaking again. He forced himself to walk. 1, 2, 3. The jury-rigged boot held. For now. At 3,000 steps, the terrain changed again. The gentle hills gave way to a more broken landscape. Exposed rock formations, deeper gullies, patches of ice where wind had scoured the snow away. Harder to navigate, but maybe a good sign. The road followed valleys when possible, avoided the worst terrain. If he was seeing rougher ground, maybe he drifted too far north and needed to angle south. Ivan checked his compass. He'd been holding bearing 220 consistently. The terrain suggested he should adjust to 230, more south, less west. He made the correction and continued. His food was gone except for 2 pieces of dried fish. His water was gone. He scooped snow as he walked, let it melt in his mouth, swallowed the tiny amount of liquid it provided. His body needed 2 liters a day minimum. He was getting maybe 200 milliliters. The math was brutal. At 1,600 hours, his knee gave out. Not gradually, just failed. One moment he was walking, the next he was on the ground, having pitched forward when the joint refused to support his weight. Pain exploded through his leg, sharp and immediate. Ivan lay in the snow, breathing hard. The knee had been damaged in the crash, weakened by constant use, and now it had quit. He tried to stand. The knee buckled again. He caught himself with his hands, but his right shoulder screamed protest. Okay, think. He couldn't walk, couldn't put weight on the leg. Crawling 400 kilometers wasn't an option, but giving up wasn't either. Ivan pulled out his paracord and knife. If he couldn't walk normally, he'd build something to help him walk abnormally. He cut 2 lengths of cord, each about 3 feet long, and fashioned a crude brace around his knee using gauze for padding and the cord for support. The improvised brace wouldn't fix the damage, but it might stabilize the joint enough to bear weight. He tested it. Pain, but the knee held. He took 3 steps. Still held. The brace limited his range of motion, forced him to walk stiff-legged. But stiff-legged was better than not at all. Ivan continued southwest, his new gait awkward and energy-intensive. Every step required conscious effort. Plant the stiff leg, transfer weight carefully, swing the good leg forward. His pace dropped from 3 kilometers per hour to maybe 1. At this rate, reaching the convoy route would take weeks. He didn't have weeks, he had days. Maybe. At 1,700 hours, he found the fuel drum. Old, rusted, half-buried in snow and ice. Cyrillic letters on the side read diesel, mining operation. 7. The drum was empty, long abandoned, but it meant something crucial. Humans had been here. Not recently, but humans used this area. For what? Supply route, hunting grounds, mining claim. Ivan studied the drum's position, tried to read the landscape. The drum sat at the edge of what might have been a vehicle track, faint depression in the ground, nearly invisible under snow, but following a logical path through the terrain, a road, or something like it. He adjusted his bearing to follow the track. If it led to mining operation 7, that was civilization. If it led to another abandoned site, at least it was evidence he was moving through human territory, rather than empty wilderness. The track led him between rock formations that channeled wind into a howling tunnel. Ivan leaned into it, pushed forward step by agonizing step. His exposed skin burned with cold despite the scarf. His eyes watered and the tears froze on his cheeks. A shape appeared ahead, dark, angular, too regular to be natural. Ivan approached cautiously, hope and dread mixing in his chest. Please be shelter. Please be supplies. Please be salvation. It was a cabin, crude, maybe 10 feet by 12, built from rough-cut logs chinked with moss and mud. The roof sagged on one side. The door hung at an angle on broken hinges, but it had 4 walls and something resembling a roof. Ivan pushed the door open. Darkness inside, but his flashlight revealed a single room with a dirt floor, a crude stone fireplace in one corner, and debris scattered everywhere. Broken bottles, torn fabric, animal droppings. The place had been abandoned for years, maybe decades. But in the corner, covered in dust and mouse droppings, sat a wooden crate. Ivan limped over, pried it open with his knife. Inside, waterproof matches in a sealed tin, 3 emergency candles, a wool blanket eaten through with holes, and a rusted can with no label. The matches were dry. The candles were wax. The blanket had enough intact sections to matter. Ivan wanted to weep with gratitude, but his body had no moisture left for tears. Instead, he gathered what he could carry, looked at the fireplace, and made a decision. He would stay here tonight. Rest. Warm up. Let his knee stabilize. Tomorrow he would walk again. Tonight, he would not freeze. He began gathering dried wood and debris for a fire. The cabin had been abandoned so long that Ivan found wood inside. Broken furniture, pieces of the door frame, scraps of what might have been shelving. He stacked it in the fireplace, built a proper fire lay with tinder at the bottom, kindling in the middle, larger pieces on top. His father had taught him this at age 7. Build it right the first time because you might not get a second chance. He struck one of the cabin matches. The head crumbled to dust. Useless. He tried a second. Same result. The third match caught, flared bright, and he touched it to the tinder. The dried wood caught immediately. Smoke rose, found the chimney, and disappeared into darkness above. Heat. Real heat for the first time in 2 days. Ivan held his hands over the flames, felt warmth penetrate his gloves. He removed them and warmed his hands, checking for frostbite. He removed his boots and inspected his toes. The 3 white ones had progressed to gray at the tips. Not good, but not black yet. He wrapped them in clean gauze, put on dry socks from his emergency kit. Massaged circulation back into his feet. The fire grew stronger. Ivan added more wood, careful not to smother it. The cabin filled with warmth and smoke and the smell of burning pine. Temperature rose to maybe -10, -5. Tropical compared to outside. He opened the unlabeled can with his knife. Inside, condensed milk, turned slightly brown but still sealed. Probably still safe. He ate it with his fingers, licking the can clean. Sugar and fat and protein. His body absorbed it desperately. The 2 remaining pieces of dried fish became his dinner. He ate slowly, chewing each bite 30 times, making his stomach believe it was getting more than it actually was. Then he melted snow in his aluminum pot over the fire, drank the resulting water even though it tasted like smoke and metal. His radio crackled at 1947, right on schedule. Ivan grabbed it. Unit 3 to Unit 1, found shelter, old mining cabin, location unknown but following what appears to be vehicle track. Estimate 15 to 20 kilometers from crash site. Over. 3, good to hear. Voice, search operations, resume tomorrow. Weather clearing, maintain position if possible. We will find you. Maintain position. Ivan looked around the cabin. Better shelter than anything he could build. But staying here meant waiting for rescue that might never come. Walking meant pushing toward the convoy route where they were actually searching. Unit 1, I'm continuing southwest tomorrow toward convoy route. Will fire flare if I see or hear search aircraft. Over. The transmission faded before he heard a response. Ivan fed the fire, watched flames dance against stone. The warmth made him aware of how exhausted he was. His body screamed for sleep. Real sleep. not the half-conscious dozing he'd managed in the tarp shelter. He laid out the moth-eaten blanket near the fire, put his sleeping bag on top of it, and crawled inside fully clothed. The combination of fire, blanket, and sleeping bag created actual warmth. His shaking stopped, his muscles unclenched. For the first time since the crash, he felt almost human. Outside, wind howled around the cabin, but inside, Ivan was warm and dry and alive. His knee throbbed, his toes ached, his shoulder felt like someone had driven nails through the joint. But he was alive. He closed his eyes and let sleep take him. Sometime in the night, he dreamed of Anya. She was older in the dream, maybe 12 or 13, and she was teaching him something. How to use a smartphone, how to send a text message. "It's easy, Papa. See, just press here." "I'm too old for this technology," Dream Ivan said. "You're not too old. You're just stubborn." He woke with tears frozen on his face. Dawn came with silence. The wind had stopped. Ivan crawled out of his sleeping bag and looked through the cabin's broken window. Clear sky. Actual blue sky for the first time in 3 days. The storm had passed. He rebuilt the fire using the last of the cabin's scavenged wood, melted snow for water, and took inventory of his remaining supplies. No food. The matches from the cabin, maybe 20 left in the tin. 3 candles, the damaged blanket, his own gear, sleeping bag, tarp, paracord, knife, aluminum pot, compass, radio. 2 road flares. His body had recovered somewhat overnight. The warmth and rest had helped. His knee was still unstable, but the brace held. His toes were gray but not black. He was damaged but operational. Even checked his watch. 0700, day 3 since the crash. Anya's birthday was tomorrow. He'd promised to be home. He packed his gear and stepped outside into crystalline cold. -48. The clear sky meant the temperature would drop tonight to -60 or worse. He needed to find shelter or rescue before then. The vehicle track was visible now in daylight. 2 parallel depressions in the snow. Nearly filled in, but definitely man-made. Ivan followed it southwest. His stiff-legged gait was awkward, but he maintained a steady pace. 1 kilometer per hour, maybe 2 on flat ground. At 1000 hours, he saw smoke. Thin gray line rising into blue sky, maybe 3 kilometers ahead. Smoke meant fire. Fire meant people. Ivan's heart rate jumped. He increased his pace despite the pain in his knee. The track led toward the smoke, winding through low hills and frozen marsh. As he got closer, he could make out a structure and a herd of reindeer grazing near it. Next to the structure sat a snowmobile. People. Real people. Salvation. Ivan tried to run, but his knee buckled. He caught himself, stayed upright, kept walking. Faster now, ignoring pain. 2 kilometers, 1 kilometer, 500 meters. A man emerged from the structure, stocky, wearing traditional Saka clothing. He saw Ivan and froze. Then he turned and shouted something in Yakut. 2 more people came out, a woman and a younger man. They stared at Ivan like he was a ghost. Ivan raised his hand. His voice came out as a croak. "Help, please, I need help." The man approached cautiously. He spoke in broken Russian. "Who are you? Where from?" "Ivan Kravitz, truck driver. Crashed 3 days ago. Walking from crash site. Need to contact my convoy. My daughter, her birthday is tomorrow. I promised." The man's expression changed from suspicion to shock. "You walked? In the storm?" Ivan pointed northeast. "Maybe 25 kilometers. Maybe 30. The woman said something in Yakut. The man nodded. "You come. Sit. We have food. We have radio." They brought Ivan inside the herder's camp. Warm air hit him like a wall. A wood stove dominated one corner. The woman guided him to a bench and began removing his boots. "No," Ivan protested. "The toes. Frostbite. Be careful." She nodded, worked gently. When she saw his gray toes, she said something sharp in Yakut. The younger man returned with snow. The woman packed it around Ivan's feet, slowly, carefully. The man handed Ivan a bowl of hot soup. Ivan's hands shook so badly he could barely hold it. The man steadied the bowl, helped him drink. "I am Nikolai. the man said. This is my wife Sarna, my son Mikhail. How far to Kandiga? Ivan asked. 80 kilometers by snowmobile. The road is 20 kilometers south. Your radio. Can you contact authorities? Nikolai moved to a battery-powered radio on a shelf. He adjusted frequencies, spoke into the handset. Finally, a response. Nikolai spoke rapidly, giving coordinates. He handed the radio to Ivan. This is Ivan Kravitz, Unit 3. Crashed 3 days ago. Walk to herder camp. Request extraction. Over. Unit 3, this is search coordination. Confirming your identity. What was your cargo manifest? Medical supplies, antibiotics, insulin, emergency surgical equipment. A pause. Identity confirmed. Dispatching helicopter to your position. ETA 2 hours. Confirm you are injured but stable. Frostbite, knee injury, stable. But I need to reach Kandiga by tomorrow. My daughter's birthday, I promised her. We'll do our best, Unit 3. Maintain position. Helicopter inbound. Copy that. Unit 3 out. 2 hours. In 2 hours, this would be over. Nikolai sat across from him. You are very stubborn, man, or very stupid. Both, Ivan agreed. Why you walk? Why not stay with truck? I made a promise to my daughter, and I've never broken a promise to her. Nikolai nodded slowly. That is good reason. The helicopter arrived in 90 minutes. 2 crew members jumped out, a medic and a rescue specialist. The medic examined Ivan quickly. She unwrapped his feet and whistled softly. You're lucky. Another day and you'd lose these toes for sure. She rebandaged his feet, injected him with antibiotics and painkillers, and helped him into a rescue suit. Ivan thanked Nikolai, Sarna, and Mikhail. He tried to give them money, but Nikolai refused. You survived the tundra. That is payment enough. I owe you my life, Ivan said. Then live it well, Nikolai replied, and keep your promise. They carried Ivan to the helicopter and lifted off. The flight to Kandiga took 40 minutes. They transferred him to a clinic where a doctor examined him. The verdict: severe frostbite on 3 toes, sprained knee, deep bruising in his shoulder. Nothing life-threatening. You'll lose 2 toes, the doctor said. Maybe 3, but I can travel tomorrow. The doctor looked at him like he was insane. You need to stay here for at least a week. My daughter's birthday is tomorrow. I promised I'd be there. I've driven the ice road for 12 years and never missed one. The doctor sighed. You're as stubborn as you are lucky. Fine. We'll stabilize you, release you tomorrow morning if your vitals stay stable. But you're flying, not driving. No arguments, Ivan agreed. That evening, Dmitri arrived. The convoy leader looked haggard from days of searching. He stood in the doorway, unable to speak. I'm alive, Ivan said. That's what matters. I should have noticed sooner. You found me, that's what matters. Dmitri sat down heavily. How did you survive out there? 3 days in that storm. I walked toward the static, Ivan said. Every 47 minutes I heard you on the radio. So I walked toward where I thought you were. We were transmitting position reports every hour, Dmitri said quietly. You actually followed our signal. They sat in silence. Then Dmitri said, Your daughter. We called her, told her you were alive. Ivan closed his eyes. Tomorrow he'd fly home. Tomorrow he'd keep his promise. The next morning, the doctor discharged Ivan with warnings about wound care and follow-up appointments. They'd arranged a charter flight to Yakutsk, leaving at 1100. From there, a commercial flight to Mirny. If everything went according to plan, he'd arrive by 1900. Dmitri drove him to the airstrip. At the terminal, Dmitri helped Ivan from the truck. They stood awkwardly. Then Dmitri pulled him into a rough embrace. Don't do anything that stupid again, Dmitri said. I won't have to, Ivan replied. I already kept my promise. The flights were on time. Ivan dozed in his seat. When he woke, they were descending, the lights of Mirny visible below. His sister met him at the airport with Anya. His daughter stood uncertain, her eyes red from crying. When she saw Ivan limping through the terminal, she ran. Papa! Ivan caught her, nearly fell, stayed upright through sheer will. She wrapped her arms around his waist and sobbed into his coat. You promised, she said. You promised you'd be here. I know, Ivan said, and I'm here. I'm always here. Later at home, Anya asked what happened. Even told her the truth. The crash, the storm, the walk, the cabin, the herders, the static that guided him home. You could have died, Anya said quietly. Yes, but you didn't. Because of me. Because I promised you. She looked at him seriously. Papa, next time, break the promise. Stay alive. That's more important. Ivan smiled. Deal. But there won't be a next time. I'm done with the ice road. Time for a different job. One that keeps me home. Really? Really, I promise. Anya laughed through her tears. You and your promises. The medical staff fitted Ivan with a walking boot and gave him crutches he refused to use. Walked 30 kilometers through a blizzard, he told the nurse. I can walk through an airport. During the layover in Yakutsk, Ivan called his sister to confirm pickup times. She asked if he needed a wheelchair. He laughed, actual laughter, the first in days. I need a hot shower and my daughter, that's all. When the plane touched down in Mirny, Ivan was first to the door despite his injuries. He limped through the terminal, scanning faces, and then he saw them. His sister waving, and Anya holding a handmade sign that read, Welcome home, Papa, in crooked letters decorated with hearts. In the car, Anya held his hand the entire drive home. She didn't let go, as if releasing him might make him disappear again. She told him about school, about her friends, about the birthday cake. Normal things. Beautiful, ordinary, normal things. At home, Ivan showered for the first time in 4 days. The hot water burned his frost-bitten skin, but he didn't care. He watched gray water circle the drain, melted snow, dried blood, 3 days of survival washing away. They had cake at midnight. Anya's birthday had arrived. She blew out 9 candles while Ivan sang off-key. She made a wish, then told him what it was. I wished you'd never leave again. No more ice road, no more long hauls. I'm staying home. You mean it. I walked through hell to keep one promise. You think I'd break this one? Anya grinned, then hugged him again. Best present ever. If this story meant something to you, drop a comment and share it. It helps the next person find their way here.